everybody. Welcome to the SJ podcast. We're here at our 8th episode, and we are going to be talking about legalized gambling here today. I'm joined by Nate Jefferson, Matt Mancini, Nick Nowakowski, and Jake Hieronyma. So to kick things off, I'm going to pass it over to Nate, who looks like he wrote about investing the right way. Nate, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was key just to hop into something that we've been discussing for a really long time with this whole meme stock craze. Everybody's been talking about all these new investors just jumping into the market, but really not knowing what they're doing. I find that to be a problem, and I'm sure the investors that are trying to invest find that being a problem as well. So what I did was found a few apps and services that actually teach you the ins and outs of investing and also some basic financial literacy concepts. So go ahead, check that out on the WMA webpage and see for yourself.
Awesome. Thanks, Nate. That's so important. Everybody go to msuwma.com to check that out. So next, I'll kick it over to Matt Mancini. It looks like he wrote about big banks this week. Matt, what's going on over there?
Yeah, so big banks were super into Black Lives Matter, and over the summer they put out statements in their support. But then when they were asked to kind of prove their support for minorities and people of color with these race audits, where basically they look at the company and they see the composition of the board, or they see how much they actually provide opportunities, they weren't really for that, and they kind of asked shareholders to go against that, which I thought was kind of interesting. And if you want to learn more about it, make sure to check out my article. And yeah.
Awesome. That's a great article, Matt. I know it seems I'm one of those people, we always judge people on what they say, not what they do. So it's great to look back on what people actually do. So next, I'm going to kick it over to Nick Nowakowski, we have a guest here. It's his first time on the podcast. So Nick, welcome. It looks like you wrote about the work environment post-COVID-19. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Yeah, so all of us right now are pretty familiar with just hopping on Zoom calls all day and staying on there for multiple hours. But now with the economy opening back up and business starting opening back up, it's going to be a little different. We're going to be probably having hybrid work days with, going in 3 days and staying at home too. And, businesses will also have to keep cleaning precautions, maybe handing out face masks, washing down everything every day. And another big question is, will employers require you to get the COVID vaccine in order to return to work? So yeah, that's an interesting article that you can check out on the WMA website.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nick. Yeah, another awesome article, man. It's definitely what we're going to see in the future. I know I've talked to my employer who I'm starting with in August, and that hybrid model, that's something that definitely gets thrown around. So I'm going to introduce our co-host actually next, Jake Hieronyma, and Jake is going to lead our discussion on legalized gambling since we just legalized sports betting here in the state of Michigan. So Jake, can you kick us off?
Yeah, thanks, Justin. So in 2019, Michigan became the 20th to legalize sports gambling after it was federally legalized. So it was up to the state to decide if they wanted to legalize it. And in Michigan's state, in the first 10 days of Michigan gambling, the Gaming Control Board raked in $115 million. And in the next month, February, they raked in $380 million from online sports betting. And this is a great opportunity for taxes to come back to the community. I know we've done that with legalizing marijuana and other things of that sort. Have you guys participated? I know some of our members here are a little young, so they can't participate in the sports betting club, but some of our older members, have you guys, participated in the March Madness hype? Have you guys put any money in the pot yet?
Yeah, I actually, this for March Madness was the first time I got into betting, because a bunch of guys in my fraternity, they were super into betting and kind of looking at like really analyzing these teams. And I was like, I'll get into it. And I think I put in $30 and maybe made like 15. So pretty much lost all of it. But, it's fun. I kind of do it leisurely. So it's still interesting. Plus it's, I'm 21, so I can do it and tried it out and it's all right.
Yeah, I recently turned 21, so I just got into the new avenue of sports gambling But have you guys done any of your bracket picks? How are your brackets faring up for this March Madness?
Mine's not doing so great, man. I'm not doing so great. Sparty lost in the first round. It's tough when you go into the tournament with an L. I don't know what to think about that. I can't believe how many upsets there's been. So long story, I'm not doing so hot. I don't know about you guys, but no good so far.
Nick, I
neither
saw
am
that
I.
you're in our group now for the WMA ESPN bracket challenge. How are you faring this year?
Not too well. You know, a bunch of the one seeds are already out of the tournament, especially with Illinois getting kicked out last night. Yeah, not doing too well. And just like Justin said, so many upsets this year. It's probably because of all the COVID, like with all the teams not being able to practice together, it's kind of thrown off their game. So I think that has a pretty big impact on it.
So here's a question. So the Big Ten tournament was hosted in Indianapolis, right? All these Big Ten teams have been there for weeks before any of these other teams got there. And the Big Ten teams are not faring too well this year in March Madness. Do you think that prolonged stay at the hotels has affected them, or do you think it's just like COVID? It's the era. What could it be?
I think like Nick kind of said, it's more just like the fact that like you saw, I think it was like what VCU, they like completely were out of the tournament and kind of just allowed Oregon to just go forward. So I think that definitely has a factor into it. And I also think it's just the lack of fans too. I remember there was like the Duke game where this guy in like a Speedo like comes up and he does like some weird dance and messes up a Duke player for a free throw. And like you can't see that nowadays. You can't really see the fan interaction. I think that kind of has a effect on these players.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, I totally agree. I think that could be the case, and I'm a little biased because I'm a Big Ten fan and my bracket is bust now. But yeah, I totally think that's the case. Like I know Michigan State. How many games did we sit out because of COVID this year? We didn't even play the same amount of games as most of the teams in the tournament. So yeah, to that point, I totally agree. Do you guys think that this March Madness is going to be as profitable? So we're talking about gambling a little bit here. I know that it's like accounts for a ridiculous amount of the revenue that the NCAA takes in every year is just March Madness. With legalized gambling, do you think they're going to come close to that at all?
I think they could potentially even beat Super Bowl like revenue records just from all these sponsorships, that new Investico sponsorship that with the ETF, and just a bunch of other things. They've signed like deals with TBS, CBS for all these programs, and ratings are higher than they've ever been because we missed out on our season last year, and people are just itching to get back into March Madness, wanting to see these games, and they're putting more money into these games because they lost in that chance of last year.
And also piggybacking off of that, just streaming, period. Just understanding that everybody's crammed in their house and needing something to do. And then boom, March Madness hits. You can't go to the games. So you're stuck watching it on TV. And so you're starting to see a large rollout of deals happening. I think the NFL just made a new deal, or maybe it was the Patriots specifically, but they signed this multi-million-dollar, potentially billion-dollar, I'm not sure, but it was a record that allowed them to sign a TV deal that was going to allow the broadcasting to be worldwide, something that they were comparing to like the World Cup, like the World Cups every 4 years. And they were saying like the annual NFL season will match those numbers. And to me, that's crazy. And so just to see the rollout of streaming and the potential future that comes ahead with people starting to slowly watch more and more on TV, like on streaming apps like Hulu, Netflix, YouTube, because it's not just Comcast that's dominating the industry. Like it's also these streaming apps too. So just slowly seeing all these different apps integrate into this different industry, it's definitely going to boost up that revenue.
Yeah, and also Paramount Plus that just came out recently. They are actually a lot of the like games are on that. And also when you guys were talking about like the profitability of this, I think it could also be more profitable because as some of you guys might have seen, like MSU is now being sponsored by Rocket Mortgage, having it on their backs. And, you see that type of stuff with soccer all the time where people, they'll have literally like Fly Emirates or something like that on their jerseys. And I think that'll definitely be another just like avenue for gaining money for some of these teams because, millions of people watch this. Why not, advertise a company while you're at it? And I think that'll definitely be a lot of money that they could get from that.
Yeah, Nick, I saw you did an article on Amazon and the NFL a couple weeks ago about that new deal they just signed. What more did you learn from that?
Well, recently I think they did finalize a deal. I think it's like an 11-year deal where Amazon has exclusive rights to Thursday night games. I know Varun did like a recent article on that, so you could probably check that out on the website as well. But yeah, 11-year deal. That's a massive deal.
Yeah, it's not quite up to where some of the other programs have it, but Amazon, I think it's close to like $1 billion deal or something of that sort, which isn't up there with the other ones like ESPN and all those. But I mean, getting exclusive rights to Thursday Night Football is huge, especially for Amazon. Switching topics here, do you guys know that winnings from sports betting get taxed just like tax in Michigan? So let's say you make between, let's say, $10,000 and $40,000 a year. What is it? You're getting, what is that, 12%? And if you make like over 500K a year, it's like somewhere over 36%, 37%. So I was not aware that your winnings were taxed. Are you guys aware of that?
Well, I mean, I wasn't aware of it, but it makes sense because there's capital gains tax on stocks where, let's say you make $100,000 in stocks, then from stocks, then you could, that part of that gets taxed. So, it makes sense because to get that money, a lot of people have to lose that money. So you might as well bring some of it back to the state or the federal government, I guess.
Yeah, just going off of that too, it's taxation. It's coming. Like the government needs their money. I mean, if they're not going to tax, that's essentially um, them pushing for whatever activity is being done. I'm not sure they really push for gambling. Like I feel like that's one of those activities that they have a big red arrow on. But at the same time, they're legalizing it. So maybe it could be something to where they make some type of tax incentive, like with stocks. There's a tax incentive. The incentive is to keep your stocks in the market for a little longer. That's what that long-term capital gains rate is all about. But maybe they do something where like you just get a 0% tax if you make something like $10 or something like that. I don't know. But this is something that is pretty new. Like we just legalized it in 2019. So this is like a slow progress to seeing where it will eventually be in like 20 years, which could potentially be something better.
Looking at the Michigan gambling tax rate, it's 4.25%, and you got to pay it if it's anything over if you win anything over $5,000. So if you declare winnings, anything over 5,000, that's the rate, which really isn't actually that bad. That's actually probably lower than a lot of people's income tax rate. So that's, yeah, very reasonable.
Yeah, I saw that if you make over $5,000 in a bet, the sports betting app is required to hold 24% of your winnings for federal tax, or if it's 300 times larger than the wager. And for smaller wins, no tax is taken away right away. And it'll show up on your like W-2 or 1090 the next year. So it's just, I mean, they're taxing relatively heavy, but a lot of these taxes are going to like great programs like the Michigan School Aid Fund, the First Responder Presumed Coverage Fund, and a lot of the money is going back to Detroit, which is great. I love seeing it go back to actual cities in Detroit, helping the people. I mean, you can see this with other taxes like the one that's with the marijuana, where that's helped astronomically. And I've seen in other states like Colorado, they're using the money from sports betting taxes to like preserve their water sources for, conservation efforts. And there's just so many different avenues that you can use this tax revenue from. And that's why I think it's just growing. I think that's why the government's supporting it so much, because they're making a boatload of money in tax revenue, but at the same time, like like it's creating a lot of jobs for people. So yeah,
Tax
a
losses
huge future.
have to be deductible because I got boys and I know some guys that love losing, and I think that you'd be able to deduct that, but at the same time
You
too,
can
like I'm not sure.
you can itemize deduct it instead of doing the standard deduction, but you could do it equal to your winnings. So you can't do it that much, but like it's definitely like feasible. But I've never myself filed for this kind of like tax winnings, this capital gains tax. So I'm not really too sure how it would work. But my guess is next year I'll probably have some money to pay in taxes, just because I'm a lucky guy. I win a lot of money. No, I'm kidding.
Well, sometimes they do it like automatically. I know with my like E-Trade account, they automatically do taxes. And I think that's like the tax for that is like anything. And as you know, as Justin was saying, it's what a 4.25% tax. That's lower than sales tax. And Nate was saying, you know, it's kind of a deviant activity. People don't really it's kind of like and actually when I first signed up for FanDuel, you scroll down to the bottom and it's like 1-800 gambling addiction, like call if you have a gambling addiction, because it's like it's an addicting activity. And I think that's, you know, it's something that everyone always talks about. Oh, it's, you know, it's addicting, don't get into it. But what's something that people don't talk about is the expert gamblers. And that's the type of people that look at the statistics, look at the, you know, the player rosters, make sure that they're actually like aligned with each other. They gamble on poker, which is much more likely to win if you know what you're doing. And I think that's something that, like, yeah, I'm wondering what you guys think about it, because I think it's super interesting, you know, kind of assessing risks so that you're not doing it just doing a blind bet, but you're actually like looking into it.
100%. And I personally don't gamble. I mean, of course, I'm not of age, but if I were to gamble, I definitely make sure that I have some type of hand in the risks that's being dealt. Like, for example, there's this guy during the Super Bowl that bet $50,000 that somebody wouldn't streak the football field. I think it might have been butt naked or just in his underwear. $50,000, right? She thinking like, dang, that's a lot of money. Who did it? Himself. He was the one that struck the field, won $50,000 because he chose to make that bet, and he was the one understanding what factors were at play. That's the type of betting I like, and that's really the only way I think I put my hand into it.
I'll say too, I'm not a sports gambler, and I want to just clarify a couple of things because I was a little wrong. Jake, you're right. So it's a 24% federal withholding tax, and then tack on the extra 4% state of Michigan tax. So at the end of the day, it's actually 28% tax. So it is a little bit higher than I anticipated. But and the way that you deduct that, Jake, is all you have to do is keep track of your gains and losses. You can do that in Excel spreadsheet. So just wanted to throw that out there to button that one up. What Matt, hearing what you had to say, that really reminds me of like Moneyball. Have you guys seen that movie with Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill? That really reminds me of that, because like I don't bet on sports. When I was in high school, I wasn't that good at math, I'll admit it. But we did this thing every summer where we would go to this like math boot camp where you'd get different sports cards and you'd use the probabilities on people's, you know, batting averages or home runs to make these little spin wheels, and you play against each other on probabilities. It's like, to me, it reminded me of Moneyball. It reminds me of the same thing. So you're right. There's a lot of like smart money, quote unquote, who's in the gambling game, in the sports betting game.
Yeah, and a lot of these guys actually they make like straight up programs for it. Like they'll do like statistical programming. And I think that's the way to go. I mean, if you're going to be betting thousands of dollars on one game, might as well be, you know, have the data to back up your claim. And that's, you know, that's with any type of betting. You know, I actually in my phone I have an app that's just called Investing, and it obviously has, you know, E-Trade, my Acorns account, but it also has my FanDuel and my like sports books, because that's technically investing dash gambling. Like they're both considered gambling, but it's just you're making sure that you're taking the risks that you should be taking and having that stuff to back it up.
Are you guys familiar with Brent Musburger? He was a commentator for CBS Sports. He was like the one who covered March Madness back a couple decades ago. But he was saying, if you don't have a surplus money, you know, if you're struggling for money, put your money in the stock market, risk in sports betting. If you really want longevity and a little bit of security almost, just in the stock market, because sports betting is an animal of its own, and you can't predict what it's going to do. You can't predict what the stock market's going to do, but even past years, you can assume it's going to increase every decade, So, I mean, I'm myself a sports gambler because my friends participate in it, and it's something that we can do together that makes just things more interesting. And I think that's why people are so captivated by sport betting. It's a new age of investing per se. You can almost see retail traders with GameStop and those. But Brent Musburger, he actually quit. He has to go work for his nephew's sports betting channel in Vegas. So he just predicts sports betting all the time now. Like he is he's the one that coined the term March Madness, but he brought sports betting to mainstream media a couple of decades ago. But he warns people. He's like, yeah, this is not for the weak-minded. This is, you need to do your research on it. You need to be in it 100% or don't do it, or you'll lose your money if you're not actually doing the research for these games. I was actually looking, there's this credit union in Ypsilanti, Michigan, who actually cut off card access to online betting websites because the overdraft fees were like ultimately causing the company to lose more money, right? So all their shareholders were like complaining that, yeah, they're way too much overdraft fees. Like, do you see this as an issue? Like people gambling their life savings away at some of these sports betting apps. Is that an issue? It's definitely an issue, but like, is it going to become more of an issue in the future? Because us college kids are now just getting into investing and gambling, but you see some people sitting in the casino 7 days out of the week gambling away their life savings. Could that be us one day?
I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not.
But I would say that I feel like it's always been a problem. The big thing now is just access, like everything's so much more accessible at this point in time, whether it's quick money, you got the digital money, whether that be crypto or something on your credit card. Like it's really easy to transact it to one place to another, right? And that's a big problem, especially knowing that us kids, teens, adults, young adults, whatever it may be, like sometimes we're a little quick to act, we might think up more of on our emotions than logically. And if we have our wallet in the hand while doing that, that could be some trouble. That could be some trouble for sure. So I think the accessibility piece plays a large role in us making stupid decisions with this gambling stuff.
Yeah, and I also think it's the impossibility piece, because as you were talking about March Madness, you're more likely to win the lottery than win March Madness. I think it's like 1 in septillion chance to win March Madness. Like nobody's done it before. And even in fact, I think Capital One has like $1 billion challenge towards where if you like get a perfect bracket, then you get $1 billion. Nobody's won it before because it's impossible. And I think that's what's kind of like keeping people in the game, is just like, oh, maybe I can win. It's that little chance that I might win. So
Totally agree. Nate, you said something that perked my interest too. It was like, I think this has always been a problem. I know I went to the casinos back when I went to Central Michigan. We were talking about this, and something I remember and telling my grandparents, and like, oh yeah, the casino, the flies, the bar flies, so to speak. Those people who just sit there and play cards, they retire and they go to the casino 7 days a week. They just shell out their money. So I do think there's that segment of society who has addictive personalities, let's just say it, and it'll come out as more people are exposed to it. I totally agree with you. What's interesting, yeah, Matt, is like the odds are so stacked against you in a lot of these things. I think the draw, at least for me in the few games that I bet on, is like Jake said, it's like being involved with my buddies. Like I don't really care about making $1 million. I just care about beating my buddies. That's all that matters at the end of the day, is taking their money away from them. I don't care about winning anything else. So I don't know. That's what I think.
Yeah, like all you guys said, it's pretty easily accessible. There probably could be kids, like underage kids, that could easily just gamble. And one of my buds said that actually his manager during work, he would get on his phone and just gamble mid shift, which I could see that as a problem and pretty addicting. Yeah.
Bro, yes. Like one of my boys, he was a manager and he's like 22 and we both work at UPS and he's just going crazy, just gambling. And it's bad because every time he tells me about a gambling situation, he's losing. And I'm like, bro, give it up. Like throw him in the touch. Like, no, bro, this is the game. I'm going to win it. I swear. And it's a game. Like he'll tell you the game. You're like, okay, like they have a decent chance of winning, right? Like it'll be like a number 1 seed versus a number 15 seed type stuff. But you know how sports is. Like you can never say definitively that team is gonna win. You know what I'm saying? But him with confidence, no stats to back up his logic. Oh yeah, that's gonna happen. And what's happened? Like he loses every single time. And just understanding that this is kind of building the foundation of your adulting, right? You making rash decisions with your money and you're not really thinking about the outcomes that come with it. And of course, it's a learning lesson, but also you have to think about some of the negative factors that might come with it. Because again, you're setting the foundation for your adult life. So to me, that's my guy. I got love for him, but gambling to him is just wow. He needs to stop it.
Dude, loses every time. Man, that's not a good trait to have.
Literally.
Yeah,
I
and
saw some odds the other day that were like, if you bet the 15, 16 seeds, like all 8 of them to win their games, you put $1 on, you win like $95 billion, like the pay 5 billion. I was like, hey, maybe just $1. I mean, it's $1. It's a McChicken, right? I can give away a McChicken for free. Like, I have no issue with that. So, like, some of these odds and these parlays that you can make, the odds just ridiculous. Because I don't know if some of you like know about like parlaying, where you can like link certain bets together, and your odds, your like the money line increases, so the payout is like astronomical. Like I saw the other day, this guy had like a parlay and he put like $50 in to win like 95 grand. And I'm just like, that's what makes sports betting so tempting to the everyday person is if you hit one, you could strike it rich. Like that, it's crazy. Like it's not even, you don't even those kind of odds in the stock market unless you're, the retail trader putting AMC in earlier GameStop or anything like that, or you've been in Tesla for years now. But there's that overnight return is just you can't get that anywhere else.
yeah, but I mean, you also have the fact where it's nearly impossible to get that. Like, you can do a straight bet where I think I did a straight bet with, I think it was like Alabama or something, and it was like -16. So if they win by 16, then I win the bet, and they won by 14, and I was pissed because it was like I technically won the bet, but I didn't win it for what they wanted me to win it for, and it was annoying. And that's like the kind of caveat to all these bets is the fact that you might win it, but you don't win it by like there's like one little provision or something like that that makes you lose it, and it's just that's what kind of swayed me away from it. But that's what maybe other people did win by that amount, and they're like, oh, that's awesome. So
Right. I mean, there's some people losing, but then there's the same amount of people that are winning then. Like it's just
I don't know, too, Jake. Sorry, buddy. I would say I don't know, man. So that's what I was gonna say. That's why I think gambling and investing are different, man. It's because I think the odds in gambling are stacked way against your favor, and they continue to be so the longer you're in the game. Where investing, it's the exact opposite. If you invest in the stock market, the shorter you spend, the higher probability that you're going to lose. Versus if you spend a long time in it, the higher probability that you're going to win. The exact opposite is with gambling and sports betting and anything. So I don't know, man. I'd have to see some numbers because I will push back a little bit, buddy. I'm like, I think that you hear about all these stories of people who win billions of dollars, but I can't remember who said it. We had somebody on, I think it might even be Rob Forte from Plant Brand, but you never hear about the losers. That's the thing. For every one winner, you never hear about the 100 losers.
oh, that was the guy from Southfield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cam. Yep, Cam. I remember.
Yeah,
Yep.
and you're completely right. Like you always, even with the stock market, you always see people posting like, "Oh, I made, $50,000 in GameStop." But what about the dozens of other people that lost $50,000? Like people don't want to talk about their losses because that's just disappointing.
I mean, it's all about the spread though. You can still bet a team head on. You can like, oh, I pick this team to win. You could still take that bet. You don't always have to take the spread. Like Matt was saying, it's like -16 for Alabama. If you pick Alabama to win, you're still making a profit from that. But I get what you're saying. The odds are better. The odds are better if you hit the -16. Like the odds a lot better. But I mean, it is it is a uncertain industry, you know.
Well,
We
they
may
also make
lose
it
quite a bit of
confusing
money.
too. Like they purposely make
For
it
sure.
confusing for you.
With all these boosts and all these different parlays and stuff, you can do like live bets on like I remember during the Super Bowl, we were betting on like first downs. Like, would Patrick Mahomes get a first down on this play? And we were just betting like $10 at a time for him to get a first down. And just like you can bet on anything these days. Like the industry has changed a lot, and I definitely marketed towards kids our age like a lot more than anybody else. I mean, you see these commercial Barstool Sportsbook commercials, these FanDuel, DraftKings, they're on every commercial break. Like you can't avoid these advertisements.
Do you know if any of the sports teams get a cut from any of these bets?
I don't believe so.
I don't think they do because
Unless there's some inside trading. You know, have you guys heard about that story about the refs a couple decades ago that were like betting on games that they were reffing for?
Yeah, that was that guy for the Raptors. I remember that.
Yep. I mean, who knows? That could be happening, but there's no evidence of it right now.
No, Nate, to answer your question, then that brings up a really good point because that's something I was going to bring up to compare it to investing again that makes it totally different is it's only these third-party platforms who are actually winning at the end of the day. They're the ones who are making the payouts. I don't believe so. And somebody please, correct me if I'm wrong or reach out to us afterward if you're listening and tell me I'm full of BS. But like, I don't think so. And that's actually a big difference between investing too. Is like, as investing, I'm an owner of the company. Where like in this, I'm just throwing money at a third party who he is providing me a service. But like that's not I'm not owning anything. As soon as the bet expires, it's over with. So.
Well, there's like the thing where it's if you bet against yourself, then you just purposefully lose. But that's very illegal. Like that happened, I think it was like the early 1900s with like Shoeless Joe Jackson, where they purposely threw the World Series so that they win a bet, and that was very illegal. Like you can't do that.
Wait, for that situation right there, like they ended up getting caught, right?
Oh yeah, I mean because they purposely threw the game just so they would win it because they bet against themselves. They're like, oh, my team's gonna lose the game. Let's purposely throw it so that we win money. But lose
a World Series game too? That's crazy.
I think it was a World Series. I know it was like the White Sox and Shoeless Joe Jack. It was like early 1900s, but yeah.
In order to do that, bro, we have to be talking like in the big millions. Like I'm talking about 10 million, 15 million to throw a final game, bro. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And like I said, that's why when I'm going through these games, I'm like, oh, these people are, they're trying to throw it themselves or they're trying to, but they can't. They legally can't. It's very illegal nowadays.
Yeah, I mean,
you can bet on your own game, like at all.
I mean, for collegiate athletes, I know for sure, like they don't play with that at all. But then too, I think there was something that it might have been around the 2010 era, but something like that happened. I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, like you were saying, Jake, this is really being marketed towards the millennials, people who don't really have that many responsibilities yet compared to like the 50 and 60-year-olds, potentially 40-year-olds. Like we just have the loose money and we're ready to spend it on impulse decisions. And I think that's something we got to be aware of. We got a lot of money right now. Stimmy's coming out. Some of us made cheese off these meme stocks. Like we just ready to go, bro. We're booked up inside. But at the end of the day too, just sit back, relax. If you're going to bet, just put like a decent amount of money into it. Don't put your whole life savings into it. Cause like I have a couple of boys and they were essentially gambling with the stock market when these meme stocks came out, putting their whole life savings into it, thinking that they're going to come up off of it. And I think they did that on Thursday on Robinhood or Wednesday. And then the next day, Robinhood shut it down just like that. And so was their life savings. So I think a big thing is like, of course, gambling's to have fun. And I think it's important to keep it like that. Like don't put anything that you're afraid of losing into the gambling market.
So well said, Nate. And that's why I was bringing up all those points is because I just a little anecdotal evidence when all this GameStop stuff was going on. I was working on a project with some people at the Broad Business College and a Broad administrator, somebody who's a professional in the Broad College, many years older than me, was emailing me about all this stuff and asked me that question: is the stock market gambling? I can't tell you how many times people like conflate the two, and people who aren't as educated as us on this call and people who are listening who want to learn know that it's not gambling. That's, I guess, the point I just wanted to make, because they're two very different things. And right now, like the narrative might be that the stock market is gambling. Day trading isn't gambling. It can be described as gambling, but like they're two very different things. And people, with the rise of retail investing and access, people think that just because I can click a button on Robinhood and also click a button on FanDuel, I have them both on my phone, they're the same thing. And it's just not true. So that's my little mini
it
rant.
is risk taking, though. I would say, like,
Yeah.
it's calculated risk taking. That's the best way to describe it. So, and as Nate was saying, like, when you're betting on these apps, make sure not to like bet like $10-15 at a time. Start out with $2. Start out with $1. You know, kind of get into it, get a hold of it. And if you win money, then you win money. But don't put like $500 into it to begin with, and then just like put in random stuff, because the good thing about gambling is that you can do whatever amount you want. You don't have to. It's not like stocks where you have to buy a $25 stock. You can do like $1 or $2 at a time.
I remember a couple years ago when Alabama played Michigan in some bowl for football. Like, it was like the spread was unreal. Like, some of my friends were putting like $500 down on Alabama to cover, because like Michigan was not the greatest that year and was still like, you know, a blue blood. Like, they were unreal. And like people were just cashing out about this Alabama U of M game. But I was actually looking at some of the statistics for teams covering the spread this year. And U of M is the second highest percentage team to cover their spread at like 70 times. Like, if you bet on them, you'd make money on them. And same thing with like Ohio State and a couple more Big Ten teams. Like, they were covering a lot more. So Michigan State wasn't up there, like definitely not up there, but some of these other teams, Big Ten, were heavy hitters for this year.
If you enjoyed the discussion, please like and share the podcast on Apple and Spotify. The Spartan Journal podcast is part of Michigan State University's Wealth Management Association, a student organization whose goal is to inspire the next generation of financial advisors. The Spartan Journal news team releases a newsletter every Monday morning comprised of financial literacy and the week's market updates. Feel free to follow us on social media at msuwma and check out our website at msuwma.com.
Anything heard on the MSU WMA podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be considered as investment advice.